Alright guys, this is take 3 of my progress video for December of 2020. It's also the first video for the Warboss Hayes Good Vibes for December challenge, which is to find something that you are grateful for in 2020. Which is hard, but we'll get to that in a minute. You can see my guys here. These are some vintage Warhammer dudes from the Warhammer Fantasy Battle. These were the Empire State Troops from the 1997 sprues. I bought a couple boxes a few years ago that were unopened. And so I had about, well actually not about, but I had 32 of these guys that I could build. And so I built 20 of them as halberdiers. And also added up, let's see, the standard bearer and a couple guys with swords. Just to get them built, and also to supplement a Warhammer Fantasy Battle army that I had bought a few years ago. Ride as Sigmar came out. You know, there were a lot of people who bailed out of the Fantasy Battle stuff when Sigmar showed up, because when they first set out the rules, they were just fun rules. They were just put as many models on the table. There's no points, there's no limits, and so you could have one guy show up with 5 dwarves and another guy show up with the entirety of Teclis and his buddies, and they just get their butts wiped across the table. But with the Cities of Sigmar release, and as time goes by, they've slowly come back into where these things could be built. But anyway, what I was going to say is that I bought a Warhammer Empire army, and it had a lot of different pieces in it. I paid a little bit, not a whole bunch for it, but is pennies on the dollar to what it was worth. And I got, like, say 30 handgunners. I got over 20 swordsmen, and another 20 of the militia who are in like the kind of the leather and metal studs type armor. I got some outriders. I got like this guy, who's a wonderful old school metal cast for wizardry, and I got him on foot and also mounted. I got, let's see, this plastic newer wizard. I got a couple pistolier outriders. I got actually an engineer on a mechanical steed, which is really great. I got a bunch of artillery. I got, like, I think 5 great cannons and Hellblaster volley gun. Just all this stuff, and it was maybe $150 for the whole thing. And so it was a good deal, but I put it directly into a box and put it on a shelf. And a few weeks ago, I played a guy in Age of Sigmar with my old dwarf army. And I was like, I had a really good time, because the rules have really changed a lot. And, oops, sounds like we got a visitor. Who's coming up? Okay, I'm making a video. Say hello.
Hello.
Okay, now let me finish my video, and then you can talk to me.
Advent calendar yesterday.
You did the Advent calendar yesterday. Today is the 5th of December, so it should be the 5th day of the Advent calendar. Okay, so my wife made Advent calendars for them, which are cheeky, sneaky school Advent calendars, where she made all this stuff to where the kids will have to do math problems to figure out which paper bag to open, which is full of candy or popcorn or whatever, things for them. But anyway, I have all these I started playing the dwarf army, and I didn't want to rebase my dwarf army. They were all on little square bases, and I didn't feel like rebasing them, because it would mean inevitable some repainting of some guys that I was mostly finished painting. And so I was like, I have this Empire army, and I can make them into, round bases and everything. Now the downside is, like, I have to paint all these guys. So, like, I've got these guys here with the halberds, and then I've got all these guys here with their swords. Here, let's put the halberdiers up here onto this board. I've got 20 great swords with this. I've got 20 sword and board swordsmen, which, honestly, for the tabletop, the dwarves are a little better when it comes to tar pit sword and board, because the Longbeards if you give them a shield, they have a 3-up save, or is it 4-up? Is it 3-up? I think it's a 3-up save with the shields, because they've got Grommel armor and Grommel shields, which is Grommel. But you see, I got all these guys here, prime black. They're black because they're wearing steel underbreeches. They're all in nice, beautiful plate armor, and so I'll have to do that. But you know, I have all these. I'm building Karl Franz on the Griffin, but it's gonna turn out to be with artillery and cavalry and everything. It's gonna run out to be over 80 individual models that I've got to build. Oh, here comes another person. What? Okay, we'll put those aside. We can have them with our lunch, okay?
Okay, Miss Heidi said it's good.
Yes, we'll eat them with our lunch. So the wonders of having children. I have actually a babysitter today because I was supposed to go to my Aikido class today, and it got canceled because the county has seen a huge spike in the number of COVID cases, and some of the guys in class are sheriff's deputies, and they hang out with some of the people who are probably the least hygienic or concerned about the virus in the county. Not on purpose, mind you, but you know, just with the nature of their job. But you know, there we go. There's these guys that I'm working on. I also did this. I'm slowly building these things into objective markers. You know, because you need 6 of them to play the game. And so I've got this one that I've been working on that is on a 40 mil base. Is that a 50 mil base? I can't tell. I think it's 40. And I had another one. It's like, well, you know, I'll just paint these guys up, and these will be like objective markers 1 and 2. I can put decals on the thing, and then there on that, and that'll be good for the first 2. And I've got some other things that I can use, and they can be like an inquisitorial themed objective markers. Man, it's hard to stay focused with all these kids. It's my fault. I figured out where they were coming from, and I still kept doing it. But anyway, that's what I've been working on. The big question for the War Boss in the 2020 Good Vibes Challenge is, you know, what are you proud or grateful for? And even though they've been coming up and interrupting me during this video, and every time I try to build or paint models, and every time I'm trying to play video games, I'm really grateful for my kids, because it's strange to realize exactly how much you can love something. Like, you know, I love my wife and I love my kids, but the difference in it's a different kind of love. Like, you know, my kids frustrate the hell out of me. You know, I'm like, oh, guys, why can't you do this? Why can't you do this? But then when they do that, you know, when I see them growing up, that just sparks me, and it makes me feel that, you know, all the frustration has been worth it. It's like if you've ever put together a Forge World model, and you finally get it all together, and the epoxy set, and the seam lines are filled, and the gaps are all taken care of, and yet that feeling of accomplishment after that, it's great and it's huge, but it's nothing nearly as big as when you guide a kid who, you know, doesn't want to do something, and they finally try it out, and they're like, oh wait, I like this, and you see that something you knew they would be good at, and they do it again, and they do it, and they work at it, and their own loves build. It's a kind of thing that it's hard to quantify. And had I known how much work it would have been to have kids before I got into it, I probably would have balked. But now that I'm into the work, I'm like, wow, this is worth it. It's worth all the sleepless hours. It's worth all the days of like, oh, and you know, I mean, we haven't even hit the teenage years yet, and those years are going to be exciting, I'm sure, with lots of angst and, oh, Dad, you don't understand. And but anyway, I'm grateful for the family, and you know, of course, the wife, because without her, for one thing, you know, the kids wouldn't exist. But another, she puts up with all my shit, and so that is something that she needs some sort of medal for. The second thing in the Good Vibes Challenge is name something good that happened in 2020. And this is, you know, part of it is it's hard to think of, because you've shut in, you've been closed out, you can't go visit friends. There's like my martial arts class that I love and that I'm gearing up to start as an instructor in. We can't meet for another month because of the COVID stuff. But with all the time off that my kids have had, and again, luckily because of what my wife does is her profession in the medical business, I can stay home with our children. I've gotten to do a lot of work with the kids. I've taught them how to ride their bikes this year. We've gone fishing. We've done all sorts of stuff that it would be hard to find the time to do if we weren't, I don't know, in a forced interaction mode due to the COVID-19. We built model rockets and launched them, and we only lost like 2 of them. And actually all the ones that I built that were mine, except for one, have been lost. And we only lost one of the other kids' rockets. It flew into a deep patch of poison ivy. Like almost an acre. And so we weren't about to go get that. But one really big thankfulness that I have that I'm still processing is last week was Thanksgiving. Was it last week or was it 2 weeks ago? It was like a week and a half ago. Anyway, and my parents were supposed to come down, but my dad's choir director had been exposed to, he had come down with COVID-19, and so my dad was exposed to it during their last rehearsal unknowingly, and so he quarantined himself and they weren't going to come down, and then he started to feel bad. And not terrible bad, and honestly, had it not been for the COVID-19 scare, he wouldn't have thought anything about it, just thought he had the flu or had just a cold. And he called his doctor, and the doctor said, well, since the C-19 stuff really can spiral out of control really quick. You hear the kids downstairs again. They admitted him to the ER, and they did the rapid test, and he did not have corona. And so they started testing for some other stuff, and it turns out he had a 90% blockage in one of his arterial branches in his heart that, had it gone unchecked and undiagnosed, would have been disastrous for him. I probably would not be... It would just been really bad. And so, because of the corona precautions, a health problem for my father was caught. And so I will grant you that is a kind of ellipsis thankfulness for this sort of thing. And, in all honesty, there's been a lot more people affected negatively by the coronavirus than positively. But we had a little positive effect just due from the precautions and the overly cautious nature of the corona time period. So that's good. My dad is still alive because people were worried about the coronavirus. So that's a minor good thing. Well, major for me, but minor for everybody else. But anyway, I think I have rambled enough. This is like a 13-minute video now. And mostly you've just been staring at these guys. So there's a little bit of progress. 16 solar models. I've been working on Bran and Hodor for the Song of Ice and Fire, just to get them. I definitely need to come up with a shoe color for him. I might go with a lighter brown and up the highlights on it, just because. And poor Bran, he's up there. He's just flesh colored. But anyway. Hope you guys are having a good week. Hope that Christmas time comes and catches up to you very well, and that you have a wonderful time, and that you get lots of model making done. Hope you guys have fun. Adios.